This program is produced by Eagle Mountain Apostolic Resource Center. To find additional episodes of this program, as well as other content, visit eaglemountain.tv. This program is about stewarding the word God has given. It's about putting apostolic feet to prophetic hope. It's our mission to purposefully equip the world to transform their regions with God's love. We want to create an atmosphere of divine influence to the nations by walking in the power of His Holy Spirit with a faith that shapes the future. Welcome to Inside the Ark. Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the Ark. My name is Chris Behnke. I'm here with Bobby and Becky.
Hey there.
What's going on, guys?
Not much.
Not much.
And a lot.
And a lot.
Together.
All together.
Right?
Yes.
It is one of those seasons, not much and a lot all together. That's universal, I think.
Yep.
So, welcome to Inside the Ark. In this show, what we do is we dig into messages that God has delivered through our house at Eagle Mountain, and we unpack it a bit sometimes. So, what we're going to do for this one is go after a message, Bobby, that you delivered called When Presence is Priority.
Yeah.
So, I can't think of anything better than for you to set us up about when presence is priority.
Okay, so the point is, what happens when presence is priority? And I think everyone who calls themselves the Christians would go, oh, he's totally my priority.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to break that down a little bit and just go, gosh, what can we expect? How do you know when presence is your priority, and how does that manifest in your life?
Yeah.
It always points back to Jesus, and we help a lot of people make shifts when presence is the priority in their company, in their family, in their college education, in their work, as an employee, when presence is priority. Like, what do you or can you expect? And sometimes it's a little shift with a big outcome. And so it starts with Psalm 96 and verse 11 through 13. And it's this: let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad, let the sea resound and all that is in it. Let the fields be jubilant and everything in them. Let all the trees of the forest sing for joy. Let all creation rejoice before the Lord, for He comes. I mean, that's it right there.
Yeah.
When God comes, all the expectation was on God showing up.
Yeah.
Let the heavens rejoice. There you go. Let the earth be glad. Let all that's in it be jubilant. Fields, trees, forest, all creation. He's like, come on, everything that is alive should be resounding and responding to His presence. And the Old Testament hope was He's coming.
Yeah.
And so every Old Testament prophecy was around Him coming.
Right.
And then John the Baptist was the last guy, was like, no, it's like sooner than you think.
Yeah.
And then Jesus came.
Yeah.
And so what happens when presence is priority?
Wow.
And we've been prophesying that, and it's been prophesied, for centuries. But do we know that all of creation literally waited for thousands of years from the time of Adam to the time when this prophecy would be fulfilled here in Psalm 96, for He comes?
Wow. That's awesome. Becky, you got something?
Well, thinking about, a time when God's presence wasn't on the earth in the manner and way where we were able to connect with Him is the experience of what the Israelites were facing.
Right.
But when Jesus came, because they had that gap from Adam until then, they did not know how to handle the presence of God. And He had to disciple them into walking in presence and making presence priority. And if you think about it, what all the Israelites from the time of Adam until Jesus were longing for was the relationship restored that was found in the garden with Adam. But over those years, there were gaps in what was communicated, what was taught. You know how that is. Memory fades and you remember parts, you know, just like they tried to, that's why the Torah was so important, because you're trying to remember parts. But here they are literally having to learn how to, you know, be in the presence of God. And I feel like we today are still learning how to be in the presence of God. So that was a big setup for that.
Love it.
Yeah.
But it's so true. And if you think about it, they were like eagerly waiting, because they knew with his presence came authority.
Yeah.
With his presence came kingdom living.
Yeah.
But they did not, there was a separation between what they understood as kingdom living and authority and what he brought.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the rub was. And, you know, so what is the rub in our lives today when we think of presence?
Yeah.
And then what is the expectation we have? But then also, where's the rub where our expectation doesn't meet the reality of his presence?
Wow.
Yeah, I think that
Good.
it was
That's
kind of a microcosm of our lives, like going from Adam till Moses, and then certain kings that followed in the ways of the Lord, and then certain kings that didn't follow in the ways of the Lord. They were constantly, he's with us, we're without him. He's with us, we're without him, right? And so it's just like they were constantly going back and forth. And we sometimes feel like that, don't we, in our own lives? Gosh, just last week was amazing. I felt the presence of the Lord all week, and now he's on vacation. And like we're wondering about the reality of the presence of the Lord. And, you know, gosh, sometimes we start blaming ourselves, and the enemy is always right there to go, absolutely, it's totally you. You've lost it.
Yeah.
And it's not the Lord. And Malachi, I loved it because it's that sort of last time before John the Baptist shows up, Malachi 3:1, and he's like prophesying, the one that you seek will surely come.
Yeah.
And he's like, gosh, he's right here. And look, I am sending my messenger. I mean, he's prophesying about the spirit of Elijah coming through John the Baptist. I'm sending my messenger, and he will prepare the way before me. Then the Lord whom you are seeking will suddenly come to his temple. And I think there are those moments that it's just like whether you feel him or you don't feel him, it's like seek him, because there are moments that even though you may have experienced a steady flow of God's presence, suddenly he will come to his temple. And we live in the reality, is he here? And he'll suddenly show up. He's always increasing. And that's the neat thing. But the point is, seek him. The one that you seek will suddenly come to his temple. I want to seek him in a hard weeks, months, years, whatever, when it doesn't seem like he's there. And I want to seek him even harder when he is there, because that's the time that you feel like it's time to get lax, when he is there.
Yeah, I love the way that you guys are talking about this, because I feel like we base a lot of whether we believe God is there on our current awareness. It's kind of like, I remember I was talking to someone that was working a retail job, and it was around Christmas time, and we were shopping in this place where they worked, and there was this, you know, Christmas music, and we were there long enough to hear the whole loop of songs. And I'm thinking, this loop it only had like 14 songs or something, you know, like an hour and 20 minutes and the thing was done.
Yeah.
And the employee, like the same songs day in, day out, day in, day out. Oh. So I said, hey, does this drive you nuts? And they're like, oh, only for the first like week. And then you don't hear it anymore. Unless someone points it out. And they were
right. Wow.
teasing me for pointing it out.
Wow.
And then you hear it again. But it's there. And when you were talking about this, I was just thinking about, like, you forget it's there until you pay attention that it's there. And then you're kind of like, well, it's there again, or it's not. But the truth is, it was there the whole time. And I think that we look at God like that, and we shouldn't. because he actually doesn't move around. Like, he's not inconsistent. He is always consistent. He's 100% consistent. He's always there. But we get very kind of look for him. Oh, there he is. Okay, now I can feel safe. Or why weren't you here? Because I didn't feel it. It's very feeling based, very emotion based, which isn't really true. We should be out of the mindset where we have to, feel all of the feels to believe the reality of where God is there.
Wow.
And I think we get into that trap really easily.
Totally.
I love that God came from heaven, to earth, because it shows what he was willing to do to come. I mean, if he lives next door, it's not a big thing. He just goes next door. It's not a big, I came across galaxies to find you. So I just love thinking about that. And in John 1:29, the Bible says that the next day he, John the Baptist, saw Jesus coming to him. I mean, that whole statement, when you recognize, like, this is a moment where all creation has waited for him to come and behold the Lamb. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's where that statement in John 1:29 comes from. It starts with, and the next day John saw Jesus coming, like answering now fulfilling the prophecy, he will come. And then he makes that statement, behold. And I just feel like our lives are so much different when we understand what Jesus did to come to this world, what he did to get to the cross, what he did to tell his disciples to say, surely I'm with you always. Like, there would never be another question as to whether or not he's here. And I just think it's super important because we act differently when we know his presence is with us.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. In the message, you stated this: our hunger for more of God's presence will increase and is designed to purge us from fear of man, arrogance that leads to criticism, and fear of process.
Yeah.
So how did you come to understand that and to know that?
I was just, over the years, just asking the Lord, what does your presence do? I am so hungry for your presence. Mm-hmm. And then he started saying, here's what my presence does. It'll constantly challenge your priority. And so whatever gets your attention the most is has your priority. It has your heart. Like, if fear gets your attention if it's presence over fear, then you win every time. Mm-hmm. But if it's fear over presence, then you're going to be constantly thinking about whatever you're fearing, people, the thing, whatever it is. And so over time, that's been my personal journey, is when you prioritize my presence, it's presence over everything. Yeah. Wow. And that then manifests and begins to work itself, like on a mission itself, to work against whatever I'm fearing or whatever reality I don't yet have that's kingdom.
Wow.
So, yeah, go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say, so with the fear of process, I would love to push into that a little bit, because I feel like when we talk about things like presence and things like that, we get very, ethereal. And that fear of process, God taking us through a process, or being willing to kind of map out a process for what God is doing, all of those things feel opposite of ethereal. So let's press into that for a minute.
Yeah. Fear of process. Here's how presence changes your process. When you're going through something alone and you have a mentality that you're on your own, maybe you grew up without a father, or you just walked through a ton of betrayal, and you literally feel like the negative tape that's been shouted over your life 1,000 times and confirmed by, wounds and stuff like that has been, I'm on my own. Mm-hmm. Then it's hard for you to get anything good out of process. You're waiting for this season to be over, which is a sign of fearing process. But when you understand that God is with you, behold, he comes, he's with you, then the process is totally different. His presence is not your reward after the process.
Right.
That's not our God. His presence is with you in the process. It doesn't work if he's not with you. That's why he came. He's like, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. Why is he saying strong things like that? Because he recognized that Israel had to now be delivered from the lie that God had abandoned them. And so Jesus is like, no. And here's my plan. Here's how practical it is. I put my spirit within you. If you fear the process, it's because you're not aware right now that God's with you in this step. If you're waiting for this season to be over so God's presence can increase or that you can increase, or if you think that there's 5 more things you have to do to get God's presence in the process, there's a perspective shift that he's inviting you into.
Let me clarify something real quick. So, process could be all kinds of things, but I think one of the primary ways you're using it right now is the process of what God is taking you through in whatever the season is. And so let's just say that someone is going through a difficult season where it's not real desirable, doesn't feel real desirable. You're not saying, I don't think you're saying that you have to just think that that's wonderful. But what I do hear you saying is to say, I need to recognize and enjoy and learn the things that God is teaching me through this process while I'm going through the process. Like I need to embrace it in a sense, because what I believe that you're saying is because there's a purpose and a reason for that. And because of God's presence, he didn't leave you alone. So he is walking through this process with you. Is that right?
Yeah. And I think in general, the process that I'm referring to is being transformed into the image of God. And so that could mean that you're in a hard season, but it could mean that you're in the best season of your life and God's just transforming you into his image. Like we all are there, right? We all, no matter what it looks like for the 15 minutes in front of you, we're all in process and we're all being transformed. We're in the process of being transformed into the greatness of God, the image of God. And so, but if we don't understand that God is with us, that's where presence comes in. If presence is not a part of your process and the overwhelming reality that God's with you in your transformation, then it's so easy, especially if you've suffered with a mindset or been battling a mindset that you've just got to be better before his presence will show up. That's just not true. That's the lie that I wanted to bash, is that presence is with you in process and presence increases in your process. The Lord would never just be waiting for you at the end of your process and then, bam, land on you with a massive presence. God wants to walk with you through your journey, and he wants his presence to increase in your life as the light bulb comes on. And so that to me is people who fear the process usually make statements like, gosh, if I can just get through this season, you know what I mean? And it's not that that we don't want hard things to end, because we do. But we would say it differently if we knew God's with us right now in the process. We might change our thought and just go, gosh, right now it is hard. I'm not denying that. But God's presence is so with me. I want to make sure I get the revelation of Jesus and every morsel that is designed for me in this season. And then you would just see, no. Nothing happens to me. Everything happens for me.
Right.
You also mentioned in this message, John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And you make this statement, the more you experience his presence, the more you get the impartation of more and more supernatural life, Jesus, until you are full. And I just got this picture of how when, his presence is with us always. And if we are in relationship with him, then he is in our hearts, even closer. But it's the experiencing, if you experience his presence. So that means acknowledging. It's being self-aware of his presence. And it's saying, I want to engage. I want to, which is a part of experience, but it's more initiative. And so if we're doing this, then fullness is what we can, which is an outcome. Fullness is the outcome. On the other hand, then it totally makes more sense that when in John 10:10, Jesus says the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. What is he stealing? He's stealing the awareness. He's trying to distract us. So he's stealing those moments with Jesus.
So good.
He's trying to kill our relationship and understanding and self-awareness that he's with us always.
Yeah.
He's trying to destroy the full life that we could have. And so it's like, okay, here's what the devil's trying to do. And it's because this is what's yours.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
See, you're hitting on something there because John 10:10, Jesus is saying he's trying to come too.
Right.
So the whole promise is about me coming.
Right.
And
Right.
my presence.
Yeah.
And now Satan comes, the thief. He
Right.
calls him a thief and he says, oh, by the way, he comes too.
Yes.
So he's got
Yes.
small p,
Right.
little presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he comes and then he doubles down and goes, so the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I have come.
Right.
And he contrasts presence, small p of the enemy versus life abundantly, what you can expect when he comes.
Big presence.
Yeah.
So one way to look at that is, yes, I don't want you to pretend like the enemy's not going to come, but here's why that having the right perspective changes everything, because I came so you could have life more.
Come on. Yeah.
And I think that the purpose of the reason it's so important to understand that is if you're not thinking that way, then when the enemy comes as a thief, it will be overwhelming. Right. It's overwhelming without the knowledge like that you were talking about, Becky. It is overwhelming. And that's why it's so important to have the right priority with these things.
Yeah. Yep. To some of you, you may be in a season right now where you're like, I'm like Joseph. I'm in a pit right now. And you might see it as a pit or you might see it as a well you're digging. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
And it's the person who's in there. It's totally their perspective difference. You could see it as a pit, or you could see it as I'm digging a well, and you may be one shovel away from striking water, where all of a sudden your pit becomes a well.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is a perspective change, and it just has to do with how I understand presence as my priority. Everywhere you go, in the store, in the house, driving, Jesus, thank you that you are with me.
Yeah.
That's the greatest part of the Great Commission. And lo, I am with you always. We just need to say that 10 times a day. And that's what made David praise God 7 times a day, he said.
Yeah.
Because he was constantly trying to get in the position of presence is my priority. Changed everything.
Man, that is so good. That is so good. You guys, thank you for pouring into this. Bobby, thank you for releasing this message. You should be able to see in the show notes for this a link to the full message. You definitely want to go watch that. Also, if you go to eaglemountain.global and click on Eagle Mountain TV button that's on that website, you'll see all of the other episodes of Inside the Ark as well as other amazing programming that we have. We have some really, really amazing shows that are on there, very powerful resources. You'll find access to all of that stuff inside the eaglemountain.global website. And also you can support this show and the ministry that we have here by clicking on the give button. And that would be amazing if you would do that. But for certain, you definitely want to go watch this full episode. So check out the show notes, click on that, and we will see you on the next episode. See ya.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Inside the Ark. We hope that you've been blessed by this program. If you'd like to discover other episodes of Inside the Ark, please visit eaglemountain.global. We'd also love for you to prayerfully consider supporting this and other programs available on Eagle Mountain TV. You can give to this ministry by visiting eaglemountain.global and clicking on the Give tab. We hope to see you in the next episode.